بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. By the name of Allah, the most merciful, the giver of mercy, and prayers and blessings and grants and greetings be upon our Master Muhammad and upon his family, upon all of his followers. So we are getting into the good things. Last lesson we talked about types of rational judgments, and we said that they are three. They are necessity, impossibility, and permissibility, which means the first one, necessity, means it has to exist. That's what necessity means. Um, the second one, which is impossibility, means it cannot exist. It would never exist. Then um, the third one, permissibility, means it could exist. Okay, it doesn't, it doesn't has to exist. It doesn't has to, um, to be there. And so, and we also talked about um, existence. We said if something doesn't exist, it doesn't have characteristics. But if something exists, it has characteristics. Then those characteristics, if we want to preserve them, then we have two ways. It's actually, goes back to one way, but it has two ways to get to us, direct way or indirect way. An indirect way would be the truthful news, like somebody telling you something, you hear it on the news. I'm not talking about it's truthful or not, I'm just saying how it's being conveyed. Or you read it within a book, any book actually. That's a news. Then how truthful it is, that has other conditions and rules to establish if it's truthful or not. That's the first way to be conveyed to you. The other way is a direct way. It is the way where you actually experience the thing with your five senses, which they are your vision, your hearing, your smell, your taste, or your touch. And we need to know in a very, very um it's very important to know that what is outside, what is outside of us exists. The mind does not create it, as some corrupt people say. They say the mind creates what's outside. We don't know if it exists or not. No, it does exist. The collective mind of people, when they look at, for example, the sky when it's clear, when, it's not at the sunset, they would see it blue. When they look at a cloud, they see it white or dark bluish if it was like, heavy one. When we look at, when we hear a bird like chirping and singing, we hear a beautiful melody. When we look at water, when we drink water, um, our thirst is quenched. Um, when a tree goes up and start growing, and years after years, all of us seeing it there, that's the collective mind seeing the same thing. Um, and a lot of people want to corrupt this reality by saying that no, maybe that's not there. Maybe we're just creating things in our mind. That's not true because it's there. That's number one. It is there. Number two, each mind is different than the other. If each mind would have imagined something, each mind would have created something else, something different. So it's a type of corruption that is happening, and it was since a long time ago, centuries ago. This philosophical school, which is not philosophical at all, is just people who want to corrupt the mind. They're there, and still until this day, with very, very famous people, with very influential people, adapting this kind of religious way of thinking that the mind is the one creating things, and it's not correct. All the evidence says that everything exists outside. It doesn't even need um, it doesn't even need to be talked about. And probably some of the people listening now or in the future will say, why you're mentioning this? Yes, things are there, and I don't know why you're mentioning this. Well, because there are some corrupt people who will bring this up later and say that's this is some kind of like a perspective to the world. And a perspective has to be um, looking up, when you say this is a perspective, my perspective or a perspective is looking at the world from the world, because a person could actually imagine anything. And in the mind, we have two places. We have the place where we actually preserve reality, and another place where we create another reality. We call it imagination. We're imagining things. It could reach to the point of hallucination. That's when the boundaries between reality and imagination starts blurring. You start hallucinating. Things start mixing up. There's no defined line. Things start to be blurry. Imagination start um, going over reality, and that's mind corruption. Be careful of that. And the same thing happens when, for example, people fear. When fear starts dominating a person, that line also starts to blur out. Its imagination starts taking over or being mixed up with the reality. And this is really, really, really bad because now it's not your mind that answers the question, it is your fear. And the imagination is realizing it while there is nothing outside. And then people start, getting whatever, all kind of like mental difficulties, OCD, ADHD, ADHD, other things like all type of all the entire spectrum. That's because they allow and they go with their imagination while what's outside is outside, to the point that the Muslim scholars gave us a very, very strict rule teaching us. They said حقائق الأشياء ثابتة. حقائق means the realities. حقائق الأشياء, أشياء means things. ثابتة means stable, fixed, constant. They are there. So حقائق الأشياء ثابتة translates to the realities of things are constant. They are what they are outside. Your mind is not creating it. Your mind is only observing it. Your mind is only, you know, receiving it, understand it. It doesn't create it. What's outside, it is outside. Wood is wood, metal is metal, plastic is plastic, glass is glass. Your mind is not creating that. It is there, it is outside. And your mind is only exploring it, seeing it, preserving it, observation, seeing something and then starting to analyze it, understand it, categorize it. So the mind does not create something. The mind absorb things, categorize things, try to understand what exists because what exists actually exists. You could say, um, the nature of things are fixed, the realities of things are constant. Things are there, things are outside, they are there. We do not create them with our mind. The mind only judges on things. That's why we have the types of rational judgment, because we judge on things. We understand something and then we judge it. And this is really, really, really important. That's why I'm spending a lot of time talking about it, because this actually will save you. This actually will protect you even from false perception. When you start realizing that, hold on, let me back up one step. Is that I'm doing or thinking about is actually a reality or is just an assumption? Is just an imagination? Does it exist? If it exists, show me the facts. If it exists, show me the proofs. That's why this science is very, very, very powerful. The thing we're studying right now, because it doesn't talk from, it's not a thin air thing. It is something that relies on rational judgment and relies on proofs. If you claim it, prove it. Like literally. If you can't do that, then don't talk to me about it. It doesn't exist until you can prove it. And I'm not talking about proofs here from the material side of things. Not only that, because, for example, the discrete, like the actual numbers, if we are in space, if we have never seen anything and we can communicate with each other, um, can I prove to you that 1 plus 1 equals 2? Yeah, I can. So there are things that are provable. They do not need to be material, but you can prove it. Okay? Even to the point where they say, I think, then I exist. It is an instinct in the mind. That's what we're talking about. It's an instinct that only accepts what's true. It only accepts what's coherent. That's why always be coherent. So, while this was said, please remember and always memorize the realities of things are consistent. What you're preserving outside, it is outside. Your mind is not creating it. Okay. Types of rational judgment regarding existence. What does that mean? It means what you judge with this rational judgment is existence. Very important to memorize. To memorize that what we are judging with this rational judgment with our mind, the mind is judging existence. It says whether this existence necessary or whether this existence impossible to exist, or whether this existence is possible. It's not necessary and it's not impossible. It is possible. It could exist and may not exist, which we call it the permissible. So what we're judging existence. We're saying, is it necessary? Is it impossible? Is it possible? Which one of those three it is? Which one of those three is it? Okay. Necessary means does not accept non-existence. That's what necessary means. Necessary means it or it does not accept non-existence. It has to exist. It has only one direction towards existence. It doesn't change. It doesn't fluctuate. It doesn't accept, non-existence. It does not accept non-existence. So necessary means always exist and have to exist and will never be non-existence. On the other hand, impossible means does not accept existence, does not accept existence. It will always be and will be non-existent. So it has only one direction, only um, one head, one end. You would have a stick towards right and left. That's possible. It's possible to lean to the right. It's possible to lean to the left, like a scale. Which is possible. That's what possible is. Possible is acceptance of both existence and non-existence, but it is not necessary to exist or impossible to exist. It accepts both. It could exist and it may not exist, like us, like the universe. The universe could exist and may just, vanish. Our life, for example, we are talking. Today we are here, tomorrow we will die. We accept existence, our life accepts existence, and our life accepts non-existence in this world. I could be standing, I could be sitting. It's not necessary that I stand means it will never non-exist. No, my standing, me being in a standing position, for example, is possible because I could sit down and standing will just be non-existent. So the state, my state, we will talk about that inshallah later. Uh, that what are the things that actually accept this change, accept being possibility, and what are the things that are necessary, and what are the things that are impossible. But we need to understand that necessary means it does not exist. Sorry, necessary means it does not accept non-existence. It always exists. And impossible, it does not accept existence. So for example, let's take an example. Contradiction. What is contradiction? Very, very simple example. Imagine the number one, and I would tell you that number one is the same exact thing as number two. Nope, it's not. It's impossible. Why? Because number one represents a count, and number two represents another count, totally different count. Number one is not number two. So that's impossible. Impossible why? Impossible by definition. Because we defined it that number one means one count and number two is double the count. So one is not two. 1 pound is not 2 pounds. If you break that, you break everything. One will be two, two will be one, four will be 16. It doesn't matter anymore. That's mind corruption. Nothing matters anymore after that point. So that's why it's necessary by definition. You defined it, you go with it. Why? Because when you say that's up and that's down, up is not the same as down. Up means in that direction, down means in that direction. They're not the same, they're different. What is impossibility? What is another thing that is impossible? Contradiction, as I said. So, for example, imagine, for example, what do you have beside you? Or not even beside you. Imagine there is a person in the air right now, and he exists at that moment and doesn't exist at that moment and that place. The same place, the same time, that person exists and that person doesn't exist. Your mind cannot even imagine that. And that's why it's rationally impossible. Your mind does not accept this. It's possible that a person flies. Yeah, it is possible. It's not usual. It's not ordinary. We will talk about that later. It's not ordinary. It's not something natural. It's not something we're used to. But can you imagine a person flying? Yeah, you could. But could you imagine a person exist and not exist at the same time, at the same place, at the same moment? No, you cannot. Your mind does not accept it. It's contradicting because you're saying the person exists and doesn't exist at the same time in the same place. That's like a direct contradiction. It's impossible. Another type of impossibility. If I tell you that I am poor and I come to you, or let's flip it around because now you will feel it better. Imagine you need money and then you go to a person and say, would you please be able to give me $100? And or would you please be able to give me a gallon of water? And that person says, yes, I am going to do that. I would love to help you, but I have none. Hold on a second. Let me go to another person I know to borrow it from them. And they go to that other person and they say, would you please be able to borrow me $100 or a gallon of water? And they would say, yes, I would love to do that, but I don't have any. Hold on a second. Let me go to another person. And this keeps on going. One person doesn't have it. They want to go and borrow it from another person. That other person doesn't have it, and so on and so forth. And if that continues forever in a continuous chain, which each person wants to take that thing from another person and that other person doesn't have it, would you ever get that $100? Nope, never. Would you ever get that a gallon of water? from that chain. Nope, never. And that's called rigorous um, infinite. Like it's an infinite borrowing. That infinite borrowing will be very, very important in the future when we talk about existence. You don't have something, you want to borrow it from a person, and that keeps on going, and none of those has it. You'll never get it. That's impossible. Um, we'll talk about that later. Another one, which is an infinite loop, an infinite dependency, but it's a cyclic dependency now, not a linear dependency, which is you don't have $100 or don't have a gallon of water, and then you go to another person and say, please, can I borrow $100 or a gallon of water? And they say, yes, I would love to give you that. I don't have it. And then they go to another person and they want to borrow that $100 or gallon of water. They do not have it. And they would tell them, please wait, let me go and borrow it. And they come to you and they say, would you please be able to give me $100 or a gallon of water? You would say, I would love to do that. I don't have it. Let me borrow it. And you keep on going, and that circle keeps cycling. Would anybody get anything? No. That's the same exact thing when atheist people say, well, the universe didn't exist and then it existed by itself. The universe is borrowing existence from itself while it doesn't exist. Contradiction, impossibility. The mind immediately sees it as this is not rational, this is not acceptable. That's the mind judgment. So, we'll talk later about all of that. Um, we will talk later about, and actually, I will give you today the impossible things. The first one is effect without an influencer. The bottle of water was lifted up without anybody lifting it up, without a power affecting it. That's what it means. You could say, well, yeah, a person didn't lift it up. It's a jinn who lifted up. It's a demon. Yeah, there's a power. It will be lifted if the jinn has the power to do it, then an influencer influenced it. I'm saying that there is no influencer. You can imagine anything. Wind, that's an influencer. Gravitational waves, that's an influencer. A person, that's an influencer. A magnetic weapon, that's an influencer. Jinn, that's an influencer. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying an effect without an effector is impossible. The other thing is circular dependency, circularity, I think called, which is the non-existent thing to be its own cause. Even when they say, could you be the grandfather of your father? Okay, so who gave existence then? And the word father means the one before. So now you're saying the one before is the same as the one after. And it's impossible, again, by definition. So it's contradicting from multiple, angles, from multiple concepts. The third thing is infinite regression, relying on a sequence of events going back forever without a beginning. We just talked about that, the example we said about borrowing money in a linear dependency forever without the first one giving you anything. You would not get anything. Okay, and yeah, I'll just talk about those for now. So it's very important. What we're doing here is very important because it will line up your mind, and we are building slowly for a better, bigger thing. And in the end, as I said, you'll start even understand philosophy without any efforts. So what we said today, we said that the realities of things are consistent. If it exists outside, it is outside. This is not a trick. Your mind preserve it, your mind take it, your mind knows about it throughout a truthful news or throughout directly your five senses, your sound senses. Because if one of your senses is defected, then you're not perceiving reality as it is. And we want to perceive reality as it is. This is a very important thing. Memorize this. And then when it gets to your mind can judge it. Your mind can categorize it. Your mind can define it, knows its properties, and work with it. This is very important. This is what we're talking about right now is one of the utmost and the greatest importance you could ever learn in your life. And I'm not exaggeration, not exaggerating. Um I'm not like, trying to make a dramatical scene here. Literally, what we're learning here is one of the most important things ever a human being can learn, because this will help us as human to overcome all those who wants to corrupt the mind and make everything blurry and corrupt. Plus, it will answer us. It will give us the answer about the biggest questions a human being asks themselves about. It is this mental pain that every sane person goes through. Where did that come from? What I'm doing here? And after annihilation, what is my destiny? Where I'm going to? This is the common ground between all humans that without it, we would be just assuming things. But with it, we have the proofs on what we're talking about. Do you have any questions? Okay, well, inshallah, meet in the next lesson. Be good. See you good, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.